Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. So good to have you here. Thanks so much for taking a moment to join me today. If this is your first time to catch me on a broadcast, thanks so much for joining. I am your hostess, Ronee Harden. It is a pleasure to be with you today. I am by trade an editor and a content writer. I'm a writing coach. I love helping people discover their own stories and then have them share them with people because that's the main thing we're supposed to be doing, right? Sharing our stories and sharing our awesome with other people, blessing them, helping them, supporting them, loving them, maybe sometimes even sparring with them, but that's okay. I'm so glad you're here with me this morning. If you are joining live, please pop in the comments and say hello, say good morning. Let me know you are here. I love, oh, and here comes Milo. Milo's here. Um, I seem to be having some, let's see, am I having some kind of, I don't think so. I'm getting some kind of weird message on my broadcast here. So if you can see me, if you can hear me, let me know. Yes, Milo, I see you. Milo's here with us this morning. It's good to have you here. I'm going to check here, make sure we are all good to go. Sometimes, technology, you never know what happens and things can get weird. So I always like to make sure that I am on and live. So let's see. All right. Well, good morning. Milo says hello. Look at him. He's giving his best smile this morning. Hello, Milo. Good to see you here. Um, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I have had the pleasure of having some interviews these last few weeks on my broadcast. Always fun to have someone live sharing their information, having a conversation, having coffee. So, as you know, every morning when I come live to you, I love sharing my mug of the day. I have an extensive coffee cup collection, and today I'm going to be sharing some fun things that you can do this summer incorporating your local libraries. Our libraries are super important and they serve a greater purpose in our society more than what you would think. And so I am just excited to share those things with you. But today's mug of the day comes from a beautiful library in our country. It's the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And if you've never been to the Library of Congress, I encourage you to go. It's an amazing thing to see. It's great to see all of the history and things that we have in our nation. And the Library of Congress is amazing because it is the largest library in the United States. In fact, I was looking up some stats about the library, and the Library of Congress, I want to say, has 164 million items. 164 million. You realize that the Library of Congress is it's a collective, a collecting space. It's a repository of all of the greatest things that our country has produced, not only in books, but essays, magazines, newspapers, films, music, things that have been deemed treasures in our country. And so a copy of all of those things, in fact, when you look at most books, if you look at all the books that are published, you will see that on their copyright page, they have a number that is listed. Hold on, I'm going to get to this one here. Why am I having trouble? Okay, here we go. So you can see this on the screen here, right? And you can see right here, it'll say the Library of Congress. Each book is assigned a unique identifier, knowing that the Library of Congress has a copy of this. It keeps a copy of everything published. So it says, the Library of Congress has cataloged the Berkeley hardcover edition of this book as follows. And it has its own identifier numbers, its classifications, the Library of Congress record. So that if you were to look this up and try to find this book called Book Lovers by Emily Henry, this book is going to be our July pick for the book club. So if you want to join the book club, please do, because we are going to be, but I'll be sharing information about that in a little bit as well. But I want to talk a little bit about the importance of our local libraries. Libraries have been around, gosh, do you remember your local library? You remember your school library? Have you been to the library? Or here's something. Are you a library card holder? Well, let me show you. I went yesterday to our local library because we moved. And so now I have a very cool library card. I have my library card in Dallas again. Now, I have library cards from places I've lived. I've always had a copy of a library card because this card right here gives you access to so much. You wouldn't realize how much and how important having a library card is. I know I had posted yesterday on my Facebook page about, going to the library and getting my new card and asking, have you frequented your library? And I got a lot of interaction from folks saying, I just went to the library today. Library books I love going to bookstores. You know how much I love going to bookstores. Bookstores are my favorite thing. But in this particular time when we are, inflation is up, we're having to really decide what we spend our money on. And maybe you don't have the ability to buy a lot of the books that you want to read, but you want to read them, or maybe you want to get them for book club, right? Maybe you have a book club you're part of, or maybe you're part of my book club and you want to get a copy. Having a library card is so important because it allows you to have access to things other than books. Libraries have been around forever. In fact, the very first library in history, I was looking up some stats about the oldest library, where libraries, where they come from, when they started. And the very first, let's see, look up here. Where are facts about libraries? Here we go. The oldest library was actually established in Assyria by King Ashurbanipal. It's always hard to say. Always hard to say, but I want to share this with you because it's really, really amazing. Yes, so the Library of Ashurbanipal, the oldest known library, was founded sometime in the 7th century BC for the royal contemplation of the Assyrian ruler. Now, this is located in Nineveh, which today is Iraq. The site included a trove of some 30,000 cuneiform tablets organized according to subject matter. So imagine the king wanted, in his time of royal contemplation, this is him looking at records. And as we know, cuneiform was the earliest means of writing and telling stories and keeping records. And so the king wanted to have a way to organize these records, to survey them, to look them over and understand what's going on in his nation, right? And so 30,000 cuneiform tablets organized according to subject matter. And so that's where the idea of a library started. Now, the largest library in the United States, of course, is the Library of Congress because it has an example of everything that has been printed or recorded or created or filmed or printed in the United States, going all the way back to our earliest years of this nation. And so let's see, when was the Library of Congress built? And it's fascinating that we have access now Yes, we do have access through Google to find out anything we need to know, right? But as we know, online sources sometimes can be a little wonky. So you want to be able to go to a library where, because libraries make sure that all of the items they have and the items that they catalog are concrete samples of information, right? Online things can be a little wonky, but when you go into a library and you are surrounded by different books that are printed, you're able to get an idea of people's thoughts, of people's ideas, more importantly, of people's stories. So the Library of Congress is a research library. Did you know that there are different types of libraries? There's academic libraries, there are general libraries and public libraries. The Library of Congress is a research library that officially serves the United States Congress and is the de facto national library of the United States. It is the oldest federal cultural institution in the country. It was built on April 24th, 1800. So imagine our library is 222 years old. Imagine the vast amounts of knowledge that are collected there. So why was the Library of Congress built? Well, its principal founder was Thomas Jefferson. And the structure was built specifically to serve as the American National Library, and its architecture and decoration expressed and enhanced that purpose. And so it was built so that Congress could have a means of holding and analyzing records and documents and storing all of those things. The library's functions are overseen by the Librarian of Congress, and its buildings are maintained by the architect of the Capitol. Now, interesting fact here, a lot of the original collection of the library burned during the War of 1812 when the British came over, because as any country or nation knows, that if you destroy a nation's history, then you destroy the very essence of its culture and its records. And so in 1812, the War of 1812, the library was beginning its effort to restore its collection. The library purchased Thomas Jefferson's entire personal collection of 6,487 books, and its collection slowly expanded in the following years, although it suffered another fire in its Capitol chambers in 1851. After the American Civil War, the importance of the Library of Congress increased with its growth, and there was a campaign to purchase replacement copies for any volumes that had been burned. So it began to build its collections, and its development culminated in the years between 1888 and 1894 with the construction of its own separate large library building across the street from the Capitol. The library's primary mission is to research inquiries made by the members of Congress, which is carried out through the Congressional Research Service. It also houses and oversees the United States Copyright Office. So if you apply for a copyright on anything that you create, your art, a book, music, anything, that is all housed in the Library of Congress. The library is open to the public for research only. If you live in the Washington, D.C. area, you have access to certain areas of the library. People, as a public, when you go to see it, you're able to go in, you're able to see it, you can look at things, you cannot check out any books. Only high ranking government officials and library employees can check out books and materials. But people in the Washington, D.C. area who live there are able to go down on the floors. You are able to go to this library for research purposes, right? So, where we may not be able to check out books from the Library of Congress, you can check out books from your local library. And so, here are some of the books that I got from the local library, because as I went in there, I wanted to see what they had, right? And see, so here's some books that I checked out because I've seen these books, but uh, I didn't want to necessarily buy them. Oh, you love my shirt. Yes. Yes, because I do. I read banned books. Thank you, Kelly. I do. I read banned books. In fact, one of the banned books that most libraries are taking off their shelf right now are things like To Kill a Mockingbird. What were some other ones? I'll have to go to the library site and show you, but there are weekly updates of books that are being removed or banned from our libraries. And that's a huge problem because libraries were meant to be repositories of information. And the purpose of libraries is to disseminate information freely to the public. That is the reason why libraries were built, because it's important that we have access to information. So, libraries were meant to allow us to have access to these things for free or as close to free as possible, right? It's also a way for people to come together now with libraries having access to the internet. For people who do not have computers in their home, and you would think that that would be a novel thing, but yes, there are people who do not have access to, in fact, they may have a phone, but their phone may not have features and capabilities like my phone have. And so we need to have a place where people have access to free information. And so that's the purpose that our libraries serve. So I got this book. I saw this book. It looked really fun because it's got a coffee mug on the front of it. But it says, so these are two popular, I believe they're influencers. They have a wide following on social media. They're Kat and Nat. They're two female authors, right? They're moms. And so they wrote a book called Kat and Nat's Mom Secrets, Coffee Fueled Confessions from the Mom Trenches. And so this is a great book. It says, some of the reviews, accept the chaos, embrace the mom bod, and stress less about germs, among other things. That's courtesy of Catherine Belknap and Natalie Telfer, friends from high school who reconnected as first-time mothers. Parenting books left them feeling like they already blew it, so they looked elsewhere for affirmation. And so they've written a book about different mom truths, right? It says, remember when you were first expecting and it seemed like every woman on the planet who had ever given birth felt the need to warn you that your life was about to change forever? With 7 kids between them, Kat and Nat know a thing or two about the way motherhood turns your life upside down. At the same time, HGTV, Instagram, and that hot mom at pickup who looks like she goes to spin class every day makes you feel like everyone else has it together. But Kat and Nat are here to reject the shoulds, ditch the filter, and tell it like it really is. So they invited moms in their community to share their own deepest, darkest secrets and use those to kick off their own confessions, going deeper than ever before into big topics like guilt, balancing career with motherhood, and body image. They get real about dad crushes, finding the right parent party crew, AKA the real reason to enroll your kids in sports, and grappling with their own teen missteps when they realize that their kids are approaching those tricky years. So it's fun. They share secrets. They bring up topics that most moms want to talk about. And so I thought it was fun. I thought the book was fun. It looked fun, but I didn't want to buy a copy of it just yet. So I got the library copy, and I'm able to look through this and decide, do I want to have a copy of this? Or more importantly, if I read this and I want to recommend it to a friend, that's what's the most important. So that's the fun of grabbing that book. I also found a book about a subject that I've heard about, I don't know a lot about, there's a lot of controversy about. The Knights Templar. Have you ever heard about that? The legend and legacy of the warriors of God. The Templars. I've known about them. We've seen about them in movies like, The Treasure of the Knights Templar and in the movie National Treasure. We've learned about it in movies like Da Vinci Code, of a group of people who were charged with the responsibility of protecting some of the most holy relics and secrets. So this book says, shrouded in myth and conspiracy, the history of the Knights Templar is little understood. Geordie Tor separates fact from fiction, revealing the astonishing tale of the military religious order that dominated the politics of the medieval Middle East. Initially created to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land after the First Crusade, the Templars soon became an organization of incredible influence and wealth, wielding their swords and coin in service of the church. Yet, just 2 centuries later, accused of spreading heresy, the order was disbanded and its members were burned at the stake. Controversial, ruthless, and utterly devoted to their cause, they shaped the course of medieval history, and their sinister reputation has endured in the popular imagination ever since their demise. I was walking along the shelves looking at books. This one caught my eye, so I grabbed it. I want to learn a little bit more about who this organization was, and the book is not that big. The Rise of Saladin, the Loss of the Holy Land, the Crusades, the time period during the Crusades and what they did. And so I want to learn a little bit more about this. So I picked up this book, The Templars by Jordi Torr. So controversial subjects, right? Sometimes those are hard to deal with, especially in social media when there's so many different opinions and thoughts out there. And unfortunately, so much misinformation out there that we don't know what's real on the internet and what's not. Deep fakes, different kinds of things, right? And so to discuss controversial topics, to understand what makes people think the way they do, have the thoughts that they do, why they're behind certain things that we may not be, I wanted to learn a little bit more about that too. So I discovered this book series, and it's interesting. I saw this because of what's going on in our country right now. I wanted to learn a little bit more so that I can understand what the big argument is. Now, since we've had the shooting in Uvalde here in Texas, there's been a lot of opinions about gun control, about the AR-15, about access and possession of guns, and the Second Amendment. And so, in order to understand that a little deeper, I saw this book, Gun Culture, Facts and Figures. It says no nation on earth has a gun culture that quite compares to that of the United States. The US accounts for about 5% of the world's population, yet it possesses nearly 50% of all the guns on the planet. There are, in fact, more guns in the United States today than there are people, although about only 1 in 3 Americans reports owning a gun. Not only do Americans have far and away the most guns, they also have far and away the most gun crime and the most deaths by gun homicide or suicide. The Second Amendment promises freedom to own firearms, but this freedom is not absolute and has been subject to political negotiation for centuries. Today, a variety of lawmakers and politicians seek to expand or curtail the freedoms of the Second Amendment, aided or hampered by the influence of very powerful lobbies and interest groups. What's more, the United States has exported some of its gun culture abroad, and many nations across the world have been affected by the American right to bear arms. So I want to learn a little bit more, and this is all about facts and figures. So this book, the author, David Wilson, so he has a series of books on this topic, right? The business of guns. I'm reading Gun Culture, Facts and Figures, right? He has a series about it. And so I want to learn more so that I can approach conversations that I either hear or that may come up dealing with this information. So this is about facts and figures. So he charts in here, and this is a really interesting book. The way it's laid out really appealed to me. So you notice here's the table of contents, right? And for those of you that are listening only, the table of contents is listed, and also an icon map, right? And then it has QR codes that lead to third-party content. So the chapters here are Mapping America's Guns, gun statistics in the United States, timelines, guns throughout US history, key players in the gun rights debate, international gun culture. And it has different icons, words to understand, sidebars with different information, educational videos, text dependent questions, research projects, and a glossary of key terms. So it's a small book, a little book, right? It's in a series, but it's a series that is that helps people understand. David Wilson has the author has a bachelor's degree in history from Miami University and a master's degree in history from the University of Cincinnati. His writings on history and social scientists have been published by educational institutes like Norwich University, Peregrine Academics, and Study.com, and he lives in Denver. So it's helpful to know a little bit about the authors, their background, and why they wanted to write a book like this, right? To help people understand more about it. So again, libraries, getting back to libraries are an important source of this information. I may not agree with some things that are going on in the conversations about gun control, but I want to have an educated and thoughtful response and conversation with someone who wants to talk about it. I don't want to go off on a rant or go off on some politicized, banter about the topic. I want to have a thoughtful conversation. So the way we can learn about those things is to go to the library and do our own research. Libraries are so important. Not only that, I found something I want to show you. Hopefully it'll show on the screen here. But libraries do a lot more than just have books. Libraries do something really important. So this is something that um, my library is doing from June 6th to August 13th. This is when school is out here in Dallas. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. Oh yeah, there it is. Do you see where it says food and fun? Free meals for kids and teens. In this particular area of the city of Dallas, there are certain areas that this library resources are available to, and they serve underserved families and communities. And so what they're doing is they're providing from 10 to 10:30, they are providing food for kids and teens. So if the kids want to come to the library and get a meal, they can listen to stories, they can read stories. That's one thing that the library here is doing to help the community. Lots of libraries across the country are doing things besides just holding books and having book clubs. They have programs and services that they provide to the communities for free. I mean, can you tell me a place right now that you know of in your community where you can go get a free meal? Right? So that's really important. So they are providing free meals for kids and teens during the weeks that school is out. And so I just really think that's awesome. I really think that doing something like that helps a community, helps to reach especially the children in the community. So libraries serve a greater purpose than just holding books. And it's so important because there are so many needs in our community right now. Libraries can be a gathering point for things for local communities. They send out news information, and it was really hard during the pandemic when the libraries were shut down because in history, when we've had difficult times, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, when things got really, really difficult in the United States, the libraries were still open and available. So when the libraries even were closed during the pandemic, that was so difficult because that cut off a percentage of our communities from having any access to the internet, having any access to information for services and things that they needed. They weren't able to access that. So libraries play a very important part in our community. And there are some great books about libraries, some which I've done in my book club. So one of them is called The Library Book. This was absolutely one of my favorite books that I've read probably in the last 5 years. And it is the story of the library in Los Angeles, California, the public library, its history, and the famous fire that happened in the 1980s that took and destroyed maps, records that date back to the California Gold Rush, so many important things. And I mean, I've been to this library to see it. It's such a beautiful building. The old architecture is still there. But not only is this book about that event, it also provides a great history of libraries and how some cultures in the past, when they wanted to oppress a people, they went in and destroyed their libraries, destroyed their books, destroyed thought in print form. And so that was a huge problem in our country. So, and not only in our country, but around the world. But this book is great. So, The Library Book by Susan Orlean. Check it out. It's a great story. It's a mystery story of trying to figure out who set the fire because there were suspects. And so, not only does Susan Orlean tell a story about what happened in the Los Angeles library, but she also talks about the history of libraries, why they're important to our community. Now, some other great books about libraries I've been reading in my book club. In fact, we read about a story called The Paris Library. And this is a story set during World War II when the American library in Paris was open during World War II. Again, libraries are such an important and vital source to their communities. And so this story is set during World War II and takes place in the Paris Library. The intrigue, the mystery surrounding the story, and it's told in two different timelines. One timeline that's going on is in the 1980s. The other timeline that goes on is back from 1939 to about 1945 during World War II. And so these two timelines run side by side through this story till you get to the climax. So again, The Paris Library is another great book. We also just finished reading The Personal Librarian. This is based on the true story of the woman who was responsible for curating and collecting all of the manuscripts, ancient texts, and pieces of art that are now what is known as the Pierpont Morgan Library in New York City. And so this is a fabulous story about this woman because she was doing all of this at the turn of the century. So this is before women really actually had rights, voting rights, and also before the suffrage movement. But the secret she was holding was that she was actually a woman of color. But because she was fair enough, she was able to pass, and she always said that her family was of Portuguese descent. So she was a unique ethnicity, but she held that secret while working for J.P. Morgan. So, fascinating story about the history behind the Pierpont Morgan Library in New York City. So, libraries are important. And what's really cool, here are some fun facts that I found out while I was doing my research about libraries. So, the largest library, second to the Library of Congress, this is the largest one-story library. And yes, folks, it's right here in Texas. In fact, it is right just north of the border of the United States and Mexico in the state of Texas. So it's way down there. But for those who can see the live broadcast here on screen, I'm going to share my screen with you because I want you to see this. But those who are listening, you can just imagine the size of this library. So it's one story. It's all one story. But it is 123 square, 123,000, I'm sorry, 123,000 square feet of a library. Imagine what that would be like to walk in a library that big. Well, um, let's see. I'm going to share this here so you can see it on screen. But this is the library in, oops, sorry about that. This is the library in McAllen, Texas, and it is a repurposed Walmart store. Imagine a library the size of a Walmart store. So this is the largest library in North America, and it's right here in the state of Texas. So the woman who is the head librarian there, she is the director. Her name is Kate Horan. And she says that she said, when little children come into the library, they are just overjoyed. I never get tired of seeing the joy and delight on the faces of our visitors. And we have about 50,000 to 60,000 visitors each month. Imagine, imagine how amazing that would be to walk in a library this size. First of all, guys, would be lost. I would be there for an entire day walking all the shelves, looking at all the books. Now, my little local library, my little local branch here in my neighborhood is not that large, but I can go downtown to the Dallas Public Library, which was built here in Dallas in 1901. So it's a rather old library also. But imagine being able to walk into a library that is the size of a Walmart. Oh, be still my heart. It's amazing. I love it. And so if you're ever in the southern part of Texas, if you want to actually put it on your bucket list to go see the largest library, second to the Library of Congress, right? The largest one-story library in the United States, right here in Texas, in McAllen, Texas, 123,000 square feet of library space, of book space. Imagine how awesome that must be to be able to see something like that. Now, another cool thing that we have that people are able to access and appreciate, you can find these in your local neighborhoods. I'm talking about the little free libraries. Have you seen them? Do you have them in your neighborhood? I love the little free libraries that pop up everywhere. Michael and I try to go and put in some books. He's frequently taking good books in there. Sometimes, depending on where you are, you can. It depends on the content. But if you find little free libraries, there's even an app for it. You can download the Little Free Library app on your phone, and this is the largest book sharing movement in our country. It's wonderful. There's a world map. You can find out how to get them. They even provide, if you wanted to establish a little free library in your neighborhood, a little free library has a shop where you can purchase the kit to build this little library. I've seen little free libraries made out of old newspaper stands. Remember the old time newspaper stands or magazine stands that you could, put a quarter in or 50 cents in and get a newspaper. I've seen people turn old newspaper stands into little free libraries. And so they're great because this was an idea for people to swap books in their neighborhood. Maybe you've got a stack of books and, you've taken some to the library, but maybe you think some of your neighbors in your community would love to have access to these books after you've finished reading them, right? How do you I have tons of books in my house. And so how do we get rid of them? Well, some of them we give away as gifts to people. Some of them I've given away on my show here. Others, we try to supply little free libraries in our neighborhoods. Because if I've read a good book, I certainly want you to be reading good books. So this is how you can do that. It's a nonprofit organization with more than 100,000 registered little free library boxes worldwide. So you can become a part of that initiative if you want to. You can have a little free library in your neighborhood, in your yard. Make sure to check with your HOAs Make sure they allow those. But if they do, imagine how fun it could be to be sharing some of the favorite reads that you have with some your neighbors in your community. So libraries, guys, they're so important. They're a means for us to share and exchange ideas, exchange thoughts, and exchange stories, more importantly. And there's power in stories. Stories have the ability to change lives. That's why we share them. That's why I love working with people to share them. Because if you're not sharing your stories with others, nobody knows those important things that are inside of you. You need to share those with other people. So what I love to do is share great stories through my book club. And if you've ever thought about being part of a book club, yes, I may read banned books in my book club. That's okay. We read them so that we can have healthy dialogue about the story content. So if you've ever wanted to join a book club, but you've never had time to join a book club, you can join mine. It's pretty easy. We have live discussions twice a month where we're reading some great books. In fact, the one we're reading this month is called The Dictionary of Lost Words. It's a story based on the true events that happened around the formation of the Oxford English Dictionary. The great lexicographers, the men and women, as we come to find out, who were responsible in creating the Oxford English Dictionary. So this has been a fun read. I'm super excited about it. I am so jazzed that our book club has grown over the summer. We've had some new folks join us. So I would love for you to join us. So if you would like to join the book club, you can join right here on my website at roneharden.com/contact. That's www.roneharden.com/contact. You can sign up to join the book club. You can sign up to have coffee with me if you would like. If you have a story idea that you've been fleshing out, or maybe you have content that you're writing for a blog, or you have a live stream show, or more importantly, maybe you have a podcast. Podcasts are great ways that people share their stories in audio form. So if you need help with something like that, if you would like to find out more about the process of publishing a story and how to get that done, that's what I'm here to help you with. So I would love to chat with you about that. So you can sign up right here for my book club. Grab a spot to have coffee with me where we can just, have a conversation about whatever you'd like to talk about. But more importantly, if you have a story that you would like to get out there and you're just not quite sure how to go about doing that, that's what I'm here for. That's what I love to do. So here's a salute to our local libraries. May they remain strong, may they remain open, and may they remain a vital part of our communities. Join your local library. If you haven't, get out there and join your library. Go check out your local branch. Check out all of the services that your library offers. There might be some things that your library offers that you didn't know about. Most libraries have a local book club. Libraries have free programs for children. Now that they're out of school, there's all kinds of fun programs, reading programs, and things that your local libraries are doing to help support you this summer with your kiddos. I'll be sharing more of those kinds of things right here on my social media accounts if you are following me here on social media, and right here on this page. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to just pull up a chair, share a cup of coffee, and have you join me. Whatever you're doing this summer, stay hydrated, stay cool, and stay well read. And I'll hope you join me back here next weekend for more conversations from the editor's desk. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.